Good morning, and welcome to the November 2024 open meeting of the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. FERC's mission is to assist consumers in obtaining reliable, safe, and secure, and economically efficient energy services at a reasonable cost through appropriate regulatory and market means and collaborative efforts. The purpose of the open meeting is for the Commission to consider the matters that have been duly posted in accordance with the Government in the Sunshine Act. Members of the public are invited to observe, which includes attending, listening, and taking notes, but does not include participating in the meeting or addressing the Commission. Actions that purposely interfere or attempt to interfere with the commencement or conducting of the meeting or inhibit the audience's ability to observe or listen to the meeting are not permitted. This includes attempts by audience members to address the Commission while the meeting is in progress. Any persons engaging in such behavior will be asked to leave the building. Anyone who refuses to leave voluntarily will be escorted from the building. Additionally, documents presented to the chairman, commissioners, or staff during the meeting will not become part of the official record of any commission proceeding, nor will they require further action by the commission. If you wish to comment on an ongoing proceeding before the commission, please visit our website for more information. Also, representatives from FERC's Office of Public Participation are located just outside of the commission meeting room to answer questions and assist the public with submission inquiries. Thank you for your cooperation.
Madam Secretary, we are now ready to begin.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners. This is the time and the place that has been noticed for the open meeting of the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission to consider the matters that have been duly posted by the Commission. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Commissioners, since the October 17, 2024 open meeting, the Commission has issued 62 notational votes. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Secretary, and good morning, everyone. Before I begin, I want to mention that November 11th was Veterans Day. Veterans Day is a day that we honor those folks in our country who have served in our military. I want to make sure that everyone knows that I speak for everyone at this table, that we honor you. We appreciate all that you do to protect the freedoms that we have as Americans here and around the world. Thank you for your service. Before we turn to today's agenda, I would like to highlight two events held this past month that address important issues. First, on November 1, FERC held a commissioner-led technical conference to discuss generic issues related to the co-location of large loads of generating facilities. On November 8th, we issued a notice to invite post-conference comments, and the comments will be due December 9th. We encourage all interested persons to provide comments and solutions so that we can identify the best route going forward. On November 12th, the Commission launched the next series of the FERC NERC Collaborative with a meeting focused on gas-electric coordination. We heard views on the benefits of using the FERC NERC collaborative process to address this all-important aspect of our energy reliability and energy security, and we received an update on NERC's work on the issue to date. We look forward to continuing to work with our state colleagues on important issues like these. Let me also mention that Congress required the North American Electric Reliability Corporation to conduct a study of total transfer capability and submit it to FERC by December 2nd, 2024. NERC beat that deadline, sending it to us on Tuesday, November 19th. Nice little Thanksgiving holiday reading. I commend them for this huge undertaking. We know it was a large effort with broad industry engagement, including with FERC staff. I've long stressed that the importance of interregional transfer capability, particularly during times of extreme weather and system stress. And I'm looking forward to diving into this report and working with my colleagues on the next steps. I also have, and this is a personal pleasure, I have some personnel announcements to make today. First, I'm announcing Cal Ayub as the Director of the Office of Electric Reliability. Cal has served as the critical infrastructure and resilience advisor in my office for the past 2 years. Cal joined FERC back in 2009, and since then has held various positions of increasing responsibility within OER, including electrical engineer, supervisory electrical engineer, and deputy director of the Division of Cybersecurity. Cal has been instrumental in advancing the Commission's regulatory initiatives to strengthen cybersecurity and physical security standards, enhance grid resilience, and ensure reliability and security of our bulk electric system. His expertise and proven leadership will guide OER as it continues to address emerging challenges and advance the Commission's mission to ensure a reliable, safe, and secure grid. I'd also like to note that Cal has members of his family here in the audience as well. And Cal stood. Will you stand as well, please? Also want to take an opportunity to thank Eric for his great leadership in the interim in this position as well. Cal and Eric, we thank you and appreciate you both. In addition, I'm also announcing the appointments of Cheryl Ryan and Brandon Flick as FERC Administrative Law Judges. Judge Ryan most recently served as a trial attorney in FERC's Office of Administrative Litigation, OAL. Prior to that, she practiced energy law with a nationally recognized law firm for over 24 years, first as an associate and then as a partner. Prior to entering private practice, she served as an attorney advisor in FERC's Office of General Counsel. Judge Flick most recently served as a supervisory attorney in FERC's Office of Administrative Law Judges. Previously, Judge Flick was an attorney advisor in FERC's OGC and an attorney advisor and judicial clerk to OALJ. Please join me in congratulating our new judges. Thank you. I'm also pleased to announce the release today of our Office of Enforcement's 2024 annual report. I want to thank OE for its continuing contributions to the Commission. The report will be available on the FERC website. Moving on quickly to our agenda items. In item 8.3, we will have a presentation that's focused on the 2024-2025 Winter Energy Market and Electric Reliability Assessment. And in item E1, there will be a presentation on the rehearing order of 1920. I will reserve any comments and questions until after the presentations. With that, I will now turn to my colleagues for their comments. Commissioner Christie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and congratulations to Cal. And I got to meet his son and daughter, and I noted his son's already taller than him. So that's progress there. But anyway, congratulations. You'll do a great job. And I'm going to, on the two items, the only thing I'm going to say about the two items, on E1, I'll have comments after the staff presentation. On E13, I have a separate statement, but I'll actually have nothing to say other than what's in the statement. You'll see that when it's printed. So that's it.
Thank you. Commissioner Rosner.
Well, good morning, and I just want to echo your Veterans Day message. I wish a happy Veterans Day to all those who have served the country. We're very thankful to have many veterans also here on our staff and even at this table. And so I appreciate your service to the country, and I also appreciate that FERC's employee resource group, FERC Vets, has had some good programming this month. A quick staffing announcement for me. This is the last meeting for Luke McFall, who's been interning in my office for the past few months. Thank you, Luke, for your contributions. He's here virtually, not here in person today. I also want to echo a few things that Chairman Phillips raised. First, it was a pleasure to participate in the Co-Located Load Technical Conference. I look forward to working with my colleagues to find solutions to these issues in future proceedings. And I hope that everyone who has interest in this area will file comments. They will help us get to the right answer. Second, reflecting back on another excellent engagement with our state colleagues at NERC, the joint FERC state collaborative on natural gas electric reliability was an important first meeting. I really appreciated Commissioner Pridemore's presentation, an update to the group on the work of the GEAR task force. I think that will help us find answers to these problems. I also am excited to see a report from NERC filed early. It's always great to be early, and I look forward to working with colleagues on that issue. Quick note on East 6, 7, 8, and 9, recurring theme for me, but I just want to continue to highlight these are Order 2023 compliance filings. They represent another step forward in a very high priority for me and the Commission and the country to make our interconnection queues faster across the country. And I want to thank staff for their continued hard work on this topic. Congratulations, Cal. It's been great working with you thus far, and I look forward to working with you in your new role. It's well deserved. Thank you, Eric, for your service as well, and I hope to continue working with you as well. It's a great team. And then finally, like others, I'll hold my comments on 1920A until after the presentation. So thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner C.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's been a busy month, hasn't it? Definitely has. I echo all of those comments. I really appreciated the engagement and opportunity to participate in the technical conference and in the collaborative at NERC. I thought those were both very, very informative and helpful conversations, and look forward to the important work ahead. I'd also like to extend my congratulations, Cal. Congratulations. Really looking forward to working with you in this important role and appreciate all of your service to date. So thank you very much. And of course, thanks to Eric as well for his able help as an interim. Today on the voting items, I will only mention briefly that I am not participating in E1 on the advice of our designated agency ethics official. So while I haven't participated in this process, I'm as interested in many of you in the vote today and in reading the order over this weekend. I do want to say that I have been really encouraged by what I've heard about the process that led to it. This order involves some of the hardest and most important issues before the Commission, and while I don't know what it says yet, I have heard from my colleagues that it reflects many hours of serious discussion trying to understand different points of view and working to a good outcome. And I think that's really the best of what a multi-member independent commission can offer, the benefits of those different perspectives and expertise, and not just from those voting on it, but from our very able staff who has also spent so many hours and lent their expertise to this effort. So I want to, as an observer on this one, extend my appreciation for all of those efforts and say how proud I am to be a part of a mission that continues that tradition of careful attention to important and difficult issues, and how much I can look forward to continue to working with you all to the rest of the items on our docket going forward.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Chang.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Chairman. I also want to echo the congratulations to Cal. I very much look forward to working with you, and you must feel so proud to have your children here, and you too should be very proud of your father, who's been doing wonderful work here at the Commission. I'm very much looking forward to continued collaboration. I also want to just say a few words. I had the privilege to be with Kim Smaniak here when she received the Department of Energy's C3, the Clean Energy Education and Empowerment Initiative, presented an award to Kim, along with MIT, Stanford, and Arizona State University, with their C3 Government Award. And this award goes to leaders in the energy space, and Kim really exemplifies all of the things that the award talks about, and congratulations again, Kim. But also I want to just highlight, Kim gave an award acceptance speech at that event, and she talked about the importance of reaching out and guiding and encouraging young women from all backgrounds to enter the energy and the environmental fields, and how she had overcome various obstacles in her life and in her career to get to where she is today, so that she can dedicate her time and efforts to improving the lives of others. So I again, congratulations, but I also want to emphasize that, because as we move forward, we definitely want to encourage others to join us and to join Kim in being leaders in this field. So congratulations again, Kim. So it has been a busy month. I had an opportunity to speak at the Christie event in California, and again at NERC annual meeting. At the Christie meeting, I learned a lot about where the West is in forming its own markets and the various different steps that different groups are getting together and really moving things forward. So I really was very grateful to have that opportunity. And at the NERC meeting, I want to also emphasize that the importance and the consideration of grid-enhanced technologies. I had an opportunity to speak on a panel about that, and also join our other colleagues and our state commissioner colleagues to talk about the gas and electric coordination issue. I think that as one of many first steps toward a very important topic, and I'm very interested in engaging fully in the coming months. So, and I will leave my remarks on item E1 until after the presentation as well. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner and Commissioners. Madam Secretary, we are ready to go to the consent agenda.
Okay. Since the issuance of the Sunshine Act notice on November 14, 2024, no items have been stricken from this morning's agenda. Your consent agenda is as follows. Item E2, E3, E5, E6, E7, E8, E9, E10, E11, E12, E13, E14, E15, E16, E17, and E18. Hydro items H1, H2, and H3. Certificate items C1, C2, and C3. Commissioner C is not participating in the following item on today's commission meeting, E1. As to E1, Commissioner Christie is concurring in part with a separate statement. As to E13, Commissioner Christie is concurring in the result with a separate statement, and Commissioner C is concurring in the result with a separate statement. With the exception of E1, where a vote will be taken after the presentation and discussion of that item, we will now take a vote on this morning's consent agenda, beginning with Commissioner Chang.
I vote aye.
Commissioner C.
I vote aye, and noting again my concurrence in the result in E13.
Commissioner Rosner.
Aye.
Commissioner Christie.
Noting in E1 again, concurring in part with a separate statement, and E13 concurring in the result with a separate statement. I vote aye on everything.
And Chairman Phillips.
I vote aye, and we are now ready to move to the discussion.
Thank you. We have two items for discussion and presentation on this morning's agenda.
I'm sorry, but I have something I'd like to discuss. We need more clean energy, not dirty fossil fuels. I'm a middle school teacher, and my students are telling me they don't want any more poisoning of the water or polluting of the air we breathe or poisoning of the soil that we grow our food in.
We're back on the record.
We have two items for discussion and presentation on this morning's agenda, A3 followed by E1. The first item for discussion and presentation is A3, the 2024-2025 Winter Energy Market and Electric Reliability Assessment. There will be a presentation by Micah Gowen from the Office of Energy Policy and Innovation, Rakesh Batra from the Office of Energy Reliability, and Robert Tallman from the North American Electric Reliability Corporation. They are accompanied by David Hunger from the Office of Energy Policy and Innovation, Edward Gross from the Office of Electric Reliability, and Gilbert Gill from the Office of Energy Policy and Innovation, who is joining online. You may begin.
You are putting your profit before my future. I am 15 years old.
The 2024-2025 Winter Energy Market and Electric Reliability Assessment. This report reflects staff's analyses and outlook about energy markets and electric reliability for the upcoming winter. The presentation and additional slides with further context will be posted on the Commission's website, www.ferc.gov. Next slide. This winter, colder temperatures are expected compared to last winter, potentially contributing to higher domestic natural gas and electricity demand. A prolonged cold weather event could affect prices and availability of natural gas and electricity. Drought and wildfire impacts are also forecast to continue into this winter in multiple regions and are expected to have a range of impacts on grid operating conditions and reliability. Natural gas production is forecasted to remain relatively unchanged compared to winter 2023-2024. Futures prices for the Henry Hub National Benchmark are averaging Futures prices for the Henry Hub National Benchmark are averaging $2.95 per million British thermal units, or MMBTU, 13% higher than winter 2023-2024 futures prices. Meanwhile, factors such as higher residential and commercial demand and net exports could cause modest natural gas demand growth. Natural gas storage inventories will begin the year at close to a 5-year maximum level, but are expected to decline to average levels over the course of the winter season. Overall, all regions will have adequate generating resources to meet expected winter demand and operating reserve requirements under normal operating conditions. However, all regions may face a higher likelihood of tight generation availability under extreme winter conditions, which may require operational mitigations to avoid facing potential reliability issues. These challenges could be exacerbated by external issues such as ongoing drought conditions or potential fuel constraints in some regions. Regions such as MISO, ERCOT, SPP, and CERC East may face a higher likelihood of tight supply and reliability issues during extreme winter conditions. However, NERC and the regions have initiated efforts to winterize generating facilities and help ensure their continued operation in the event of severe winter weather. Next slide. Modestly rising natural gas demand and flat production are expected to exert upward pressure on natural gas prices for winter 2024-2025. Prices are expected to increase at some major U.S. trading hubs compared to last winter, but remain lower than winter 2022-2023. The hubs shown on the slide include the national benchmark Henry Hub in Louisiana and 9 other major supply and demand hubs in the lower 48 states. Consistent with the past 2 winters, hubs in New York, New England, and California are expected to have the highest prices this winter. As of November 14th, the Henry Hub futures contract price averages $2.95 per MMBTU for this winter, up 13% from last winter's settled futures price average of $2.61 per MMBTU, but 43% lower than the average of $4.85 per MMBTU for winter 2022-2023. Next slide. As of October 8, 2024, the Energy Information Administration, or EIA, forecasted winter 2024-2025 natural gas production to average 104 billion cubic feet per day, or BCFD. This production amount will be down 1% from the winter 2023-2024 average of 105.3 BCFD, but 6% above the previous 5-year average. Natural gas demand is forecast to average 123 BCFD in winter 2024-2025, 2% more than winter 2023-2024 levels, and almost 6% more than the previous 5-year average. Total U.S. domestic natural gas consumption, which excludes net exports, is expected to average 109 BCFD in 2024-2025, which is very similar to last winter. Domestically, the largest increase in natural gas demand in winter 2024-2025 is expected to come from the residential and commercial sector, which usually reflects higher demand for space heating. EIA forecasts the residential and commercial sector to consume 42.2 BCFD, an increase of more than 7% from winter 2023-2024. Natural gas demand from power burn is expected to average 31.6 BCFD in winter 2024-2025, down 6% from winter 2023-2024 levels. Next slide. Gas-electric coordination remains crucial to markets and reliability because of generators' increasing reliance on natural gas. Notably, the share of natural gas-fired utility-scale electricity generation in the United States increased by half over the past decade, from 28% in 2014 to 43% in 2023. On the East Coast, the gas-electric coordination challenge is critical. Natural gas plants in New York ISO, CERC, PJM, and ISO New England constitute 52% of the U.S. natural gas net winter generating capacity. Cold weather events can cause wellhead and equipment freeze-offs and maintenance delays, resulting in natural gas scarcity. Such scarcity occurred during the 2021 Winter Storm Uri and 2022 Winter Storm Elliott. Recent extreme weather events and generators' increasing dependence on natural gas have pushed the gas and electric sectors to initiate better coordinated use of the fuel. Utilities, regional transmission organizations, and independent system operators have taken several initiatives to prepare for potential natural gas scarcity conditions based on lessons learned from past winter storms. Additionally, natural gas pipeline and electric grid operators took steps to improve their coordination and communication following winter storms Uri and Elliott, which improved their response to winter storms Jerry and Heather in 2024. Going into this winter, natural gas supply in New England has been bolstered by continued access to LNG, which is needed due to constraints in the region's interstate natural gas pipeline system. The Everett LNG import facility in Massachusetts had been at risk of closure after the adjacent Mystic electricity generation plant closed in May 2024. But in the same month, Massachusetts regulators approved new contracts between 3 Massachusetts gas utilities and Everett that will ensure the LNG facility's continued operation through May 2030. My colleague, Rakesh Batra, will now discuss changes in electricity demand. Next slide.
Thank you, Micah. In this slide, we broadly compare expected demand and supply in each NERC region. The solid bars show the net internal demand in a NERC region, and the diamonds show the available resources and net transfer values. The solid blue and green bars compare internal demand for 2023 and 24-25 winter seasons for each NERC region. As shown, all NERC regions have sufficient available resources and net transfers to meet their respective operating reserves under normal winter conditions. Electricity demand is expected to be higher this winter compared to last winter. NERC forecasts net internal demand to increase by approximately 1% in the upcoming winter. However, extreme winter events may affect this demand forecast. Data centers continue to grow in several regions across the US, and NERC notes that serving winter load is becoming more challenging and complex due to this increase. On the supply side, NERC forecasts a national increase of 2.2% in total system energy resources and net energy transfers. Next slide, please. Following winter storms Uri and Elliott, FERC, NERC, and regional entities identified 10 key recommendations to enhance electric generation, cold weather reliability, and preparedness for grid emergency operations, and these recommendations were implemented through new or modified NERC reliability standards. Relevant to this winter, 2 NERC emergency operation reliability standards became effective October 1, 2024. Reliability Standard EOP 11-4 addresses entities' responsibilities in mitigating capacity and energy emergencies, and EOP 12-2 requires generator owners and operators to develop and implement plans for generator freeze protection, although full implementation is not required for all resources until October 1, 2025. The implementation status of these and other cold weather reliability standards can be found in FERC's Reliability Spotlight on the FERC website. The bulk power system in the southeast sustained significant damage from Hurricane Helene and Milton, which resulted in outages of transmission lines, substations, and customers. Prolonged restoration work may affect grid reliability this winter in some communities because the supporting infrastructure, such as roads and railroads that serve as fuel supply routes, will require complete rebuild. Next slide, please. Staff relies on NERC's probabilistic risk analysis to assess resource adequacy and provide insight into unanticipated events during normal and/or extreme winter conditions. Regions can face energy shortfalls despite having planning reserve margins that exceed the reference margin levels. NERC analysis generally assess the greatest risk hour for expected unserved energy. The scenario and assumptions differ by assessment area and may not be comparable. NERC's analysis show that all regions, subregions anticipate adequate supplies and reserve margins under normal conditions. For all regions, above normal winter peak load and resource outage conditions could require operational mitigation. Some regions such as MISO, ERCOT, SPP, CERC East may face a higher likelihood of tight supply and reliability issues during extreme winter conditions. MISO states that winterization and fuel supply concerns, including natural gas production, continue to be discussed with stakeholders and are served annually prior to the winter season. MISO also states it faces some possibility of risk for the upcoming winter season under a scenario of extreme outage and external load forecasts. MISO implemented a seasonal resource adequacy construct and seasonal unit capacity resource accreditation that will help ensure adequate supply in all seasons. ERCOT states that shortage risks this upcoming winter are greater than last winter, primarily due to robust load growth and insufficient new dispatchable resources to fully serve higher net peak loads. However, new battery storage resources are expected to help mitigate this risk. SPP forecasts that peak demand will rise for this winter by almost 2 gigawatts from the previous winter, while the total existing generation capacity has fallen by more than 4 gigawatts. Nearly half of this decline is due to adjustments in wind and solar capacity contributions, which have a lower energy value during the winter season. Lastly, CERC East could have energy emergencies during extended severe cold weather, as operators could face fuel supply issues, increased generator forced outages, and high electricity demand. I now turn to my colleague from NERC, Robert Tallman. Next slide, please.
Thank you and good morning. First, on behalf of NERC and our colleagues across the ARO, I want to thank the FERC Commissioners for the invitation to participate in today's meeting and thank my colleagues at FERC staff for coordinating this presentation. Last week, NERC published its 24-25 winter reliability assessment, and in that report, found that a significant portion of North America is at risk of having insufficient energy supplies to meet demand in severe winter conditions. The areas identified as being at risk include over 2/3 of the U.S. east of the Rockies. Even though all areas have adequate resources for normal winter peak demand, prolonged wide area cold snaps continue to be challenging. Cold weather reliability standards, generator weatherization efforts, and early commitment of generators in advance of freezing temperatures contributed to fewer generator outages in the winter 2023-2024 winter storms compared to Winter Storm Uri in 2021 and Winter Storm Elliott in 2022. More accurate weather and load forecasting and better communication among natural gas suppliers, generator operators, and electric grid balancing authorities and reliability coordinators also helped maintain the supply of electricity last winter. With continued vigilance and application of proven mitigation, owners and operators can reduce the reliability risk for the upcoming winter. Nevertheless, many parts of North America are once again at an elevated risk of energy shortfalls under extreme conditions. Maintaining sufficient natural gas fuel for electric generators during extreme cold temperatures remains a serious reliability concern this winter. Extreme winter weather risks largely result from natural gas production impacts coupled with potentially limited available pipeline capacity, most notably in the U.S. Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. Natural gas-fired power generators availability and output can be threatened when natural gas supplies are insufficient or when the flow of fuel is unable to be maintained. For regions with available pipeline capacity that is highly contracted by natural gas, local distribution companies, and other firm shippers, extreme cold weather events create risks for otherwise available power generators that lack firm natural gas transportation arrangements. While the natural gas industry has made progress on commercial practices and voluntary commitments to improve winter preparedness, supplies to electric generators remain vulnerable in extreme cold temperatures in many parts of North America, placing electric reliability at risk. Finally, significant growth in winter load due to factors such as the electrification of heating and transportation, coupled with the load from new data centers, is creating a more challenging and complex environment as coal-fired and older gas-fired generators retired and are replaced by variable and energy-limited resources. Next slide, please. NERC has identified several recommendations for industry and partners to reduce reliability risks for the upcoming winter. These include proactive measures for generator owners to prepare equipment and fuel switching capabilities, fuel assurance monitoring by reliability coordinators and balancing authorities, review of communication protocols by transmission operators, reliability coordinators, and balancing authorities, review of load forecasting procedures and resource reserve scheduling by balancing authorities, and coordination between load-serving entities and government administrators to respond to potential energy emergencies. In conclusion, NERC's winter reliability assessment underscores the continued need to address the underlying issues affecting cold weather performance of the generating fleet and, as importantly, fuel availability. The full winter reliability assessment is available now on NERC's website. Thank you again, and I turn the presentation back to my FERC colleagues.
Thank you. A longer version of the presentation is posted on the Commission's website. It covers the topics discussed here in greater detail. This concludes staff's prepared comments. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. We are happy to answer your questions.
Thank you so much, Micah, Bob, and the team. I know a lot of work and effort went into this report. One thing I really appreciate is the emphasis on gas-electric coordination. What I would like to do is to work with all of you to learn more from this report and make sure that it feeds back into our NARUC process going forward. And again, I thank you so much for all the hard work. I'll turn to my colleagues. Commissioner Christie. Commissioner Ross.
I don't have any questions, but I just want to emphasize how important this work is, especially given the winter reliability challenges we've seen around the country in recent years. So thank you, team, here at the table, and those, I know others worked on this as well. I just want to underscore one quick thing. Rakesh, you mentioned the reliability standards that NERC put forward and the commission approved, and there's two sets, one more under development. And while there has been compliance to date, a message here for industry colleagues who are either in the room or watching, which is the best time to comply with the 2025 deadline is today. And so thank you for all the efforts here, and I look forward to working with you all. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner C.
Thank you all. This is an incredibly valuable tool, and I know how much work went into it, and I really appreciate everyone's work putting this together. There's a lot to digest here. I'm also looking forward to digesting this and taking it into our NARUC process as we're working more closely on gas-electric coordination. And I really appreciate the region-specific analysis here to help us give some context to some of the national trends. So on that, I just have one question to kind of flesh out one area a little bit more about the New England region. I'm hoping you can tell us a little bit more about, with New England's dependence on Canada and exports there with changing market conditions and export priorities, how should that be affecting the way that we're looking at New England's readiness going into this season?
Yeah, so the U.S. imports natural gas from the west and from the east. The flows that come into New England from Canada typically come from West Canada across through the Trans-Canada Pipeline, or they come through the LNG facility located in St. John, New Brunswick. Those deliveries are typically contracted by local distribution companies in New England, and they can contract for deliveries. That facility also has storage, so they can hold the LNG and send it down the pipeline into New England, kind of on demand. The one concern there with exports is that Eastern Canada is in the same region as the Eastern United States, and so when there's weather that causes high levels of demand in New England, that typically can also affect Eastern Canada, and so that could affect how much exports are available. But as I said, typically they're pre-contracted, and so historically they've continued to flow, to the level that they can.
Thanks, Micah. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Commissioner Chang.
Thank you. I don't have questions, but I want to just maybe reflect some of the things you said. I heard that 2/3 east of the Rockies are at risk during severe weather events and extreme conditions. And I guess I'm reflecting that these severe weather events are commonplace, and especially in the winters, and I'm particularly concerned about them, and I want to raise that. I'm very encouraged by the fact that many utilities in the regions and RTOs and pipelines as well are taking steps to ensure reliability, including implementing some of the, or going to be implementing compliance with the new NERC standards. I'm also encouraged by some, I'll say it's sort of the beginning of the gas and electric, or the next iteration of gas and electric coordination effort. I just think these efforts are extremely important because of what I just said, which is these severe weather events they're not unusual. And even though, yes, I appreciate the report focuses on normal weather conditions, and we hope to always have normal weather conditions, that we don't actually always have normal weather conditions, and I'm concerned about that. I also want to just highlight that given the frequency of severe weather events, not only gas and electric coordination issues are important, but also all the things that you just talked about, load growth and retirements of other with various different resources. We need to continue to evaluate a full range of solutions, and I know we're going to talk more about transmission, but I think all of the above solutions are necessary, and we need to be very vigilant about going into the winter, but also future winters, how we build our infrastructure to be robust and secure and reliable. So I guess I want to alert everyone that this is, it's a very important work, and thank you very, very much for doing it. But I also want to note that our work is not done. It's only going to become more challenging going forward. And so thank you for all of the work that you're doing, and thank you for the industry participants that will continue to engage with us and with the commission going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners, and thank you again to the team. Madam Secretary, if we could please move to our final item.
Sure. The last item for presentation and discussion this morning is item E1, order number 1920A, Building for the Future through Electric Regional Transmission Planning and Cost Allocation. There will be a presentation by Michael Kellermann from the Office of the General Counsel, Noah Lichtenstein from the Office of Energy Market Regulation, and Danielle Gordon from the Office of Energy Policy and Innovation. They are accompanied by Patrick Metz from the Office of the General Counsel and Michelle Veloso from the Office of Electric Reliability. You may begin.
Good morning, Chairman Phillips and Commissioners. Item E1 is order number 1920A, a draft order on rehearing and clarification of order number 1920, Building for the Future through Electric Regional Transmission Planning and Cost Allocation. Order number 1920A largely sustains the requirements of order number 1920, which, pursuant to Section 206 of the Federal Power Act, reformed the Commission's regional transmission planning and cost allocation processes to require transmission providers to conduct long-term regional transmission planning. Nevertheless, in some instances, the draft rehearing order agrees with certain arguments raised on rehearing and clarification, and in those instances, it clarifies the meaning of order number 1920 or modifies the discussion and sets aside order number 1920 in part. Staff will turn to these clarifications and modifications shortly. On May 13th, 2024, the Commission issued order number 1920. The reforms adopted in order number 1920 remedy deficiencies in the existing transmission planning requirements to ensure that Commission jurisdictional rates remain just and reasonable and not unduly discriminatory or preferential. The Commission initially considered these reforms in its July 2021 Advance Notice of Proposed Rulemaking, later issued an April 2022 Notice of Proposed Rulemaking that proposed specific reforms, and then issued order number 1920. In response to order number 1920, the Commission received 49 timely filed requests for rehearing and clarification that raise issues related to nearly all the reforms adopted in order number 1920. Order number 1920A provides a number of clarifications on the required reforms and, in some instances, sets aside, in part, order number 1920 requirements in response to arguments made on rehearing. For example, order number 1920A further enhances the role of relevant state entities in long-term regional transmission planning, especially their role in shaping scenario developments and cost allocation. Order number 1920A requires transmission providers to incorporate state input about how future scenarios used in long-term regional transmission planning will be developed, given that the scenarios will necessarily reflect how the states plan to meet their laws, policies, and regulations. Order number 1920A also requires transmission providers to include in the transmittal or as an attachment to their compliance filings any ex-ante cost allocation method or state agreement process agreed to by the relevant state entities, even if the transmission provider chooses not to propose the method or process in compliance with order number 1920. Transmission providers must include in their compliance filings any information related to relevant state entities' agreed upon cost allocation method or state agreement process that relevant state entities request that transmission providers include on compliance. Order number 1920A makes clear that the Commission will consider the entire record, including the relevant state entities' agreed upon cost allocation method or process, and a transmission provider's proposal, should they differ. The Commission may adopt any cost allocation method or process proposed by the relevant state entities and submitted on compliance, so long as it complies with Order Number 1920 and the cost causation principle. This concludes my portion of the presentation. My colleague Noah Lichtenstein from the Office of Energy Market Regulation will continue.
Good morning. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Picking up where Michael left off here, Order Number 1920A further clarifies that if relevant state entities request additional time to complete cost allocation discussions, the Commission will extend the engagement period for up to an additional 6 months to ensure that relevant state entities have sufficient time to engage in fulsome discussions. Relatedly, in the event of such an extension to the engagement period, Order Number 1920A also provides that the Commission will extend the relevant Order Number 1920 compliance deadlines. Going beyond the compliance stage, Order Number 1920A requires transmission providers to consult with relevant state entities before amending their long-term regional transmission cost allocation method or state agreement process or processes that is on file with the Commission, or later, if relevant state entities seek for the transmission provider to amend the method or process consistent with their chosen method to reach agreement. In an effort to increase transparency, Order Number 1928 requires that transmission providers post on a public website the results of their consultations with relevant state entities before filing such an amendment, and explain why they have chosen not to propose any amendments preferred by relevant state entities. These requirements will further ensure that states have the opportunity for increased involvement in establishing cost allocation methods for long-term regional transmission facilities beyond the Order Number 1920 compliance stage. Next, Order Number 1920A clarifies that while transmission providers must develop 3 long-term scenarios that meet all the requirements adopted in Order Number 1920, transmission providers may develop additional scenarios to provide relevant state entities with information that they can use to inform the development of long-term regional cost allocation methods or state agreement processes. Transmission providers have the flexibility to depart from Order Number 1920's requirements related to the development of the required long-term scenarios while developing these additional optional scenarios. Order Number 1928 requires that if relevant state entities request additional scenarios to inform their consideration of cost allocation methods, transmission providers must develop a reasonable number of these scenarios. As long as transmission providers engage in the robust planning process and meet transparency requirements, transmission providers are free to develop and consider additional information beyond what is required under Order Number 1920. This concludes my portion of the presentation, and for the rest, I'll hand it over to Danielle Gordon from the Office of Energy Policy and Innovation.
Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners. Order Number 1920A also sets aside, in part, the requirement to use 7 categories of factors in long-term regional transmission planning. Order Number 1920 had described Factor Category 7 as taking into account utility and corporate commitments and federally recognized tribal, state, and local policy goals that affect long-term transmission needs. In response to requests for rehearing that suggest that Factor Category 7 could unnecessarily account for the needs of particular transmission users, Order Number 1920A sets aside the requirement to incorporate corporate commitments from Factor Category 7 into each required long-term scenario. Order 1920A further specifies that while transmission providers are not required to use the set of 7 required benefits to help inform their identification of long-term transmission needs, the identification of those needs should rely on economic and reliability drivers. Finally, Order Number 1920A requires transmission providers to propose a date no later than 2 years from the date on which initial compliance filings to comply with Order Number 1920 are due, on which they will commence their first long-term regional transmission planning cycle. This is a change from Order Number 1920's requirement that the first long-term regional transmission planning cycle begin no later than 1 year after initial Order Number 1920 compliance filings are due. This modification balances the need to ensure that transmission providers timely implement Order Number 1920's requirements to avoid unnecessary delays in delivering these beneficial reforms to customers, with providing transmission providers sufficient time to implement long-term regional transmission planning, and align the long-term regional transmission planning cycle with existing transmission planning cycles, which could be longer than 1 single year. Thank you. This concludes our presentation. We are happy to address any questions.
Thank you so much, Michael, Noah, Danielle, and your teams. Thank you for the presentation today. Before I get into my comments, I also want to just give an enormous thank you to all the commission staff that worked on both Order Number 1920 and Order Number 1920A. I know that this was a huge task, and I know that these folks that you represent at this table, they have worked around the clock for months, years on this. And I'll tell you how I know that. Every now and then, I see your emails. I can see what time you send your email, and that it's on the weekend, and it's on a holiday. And I understand the sacrifices that we've all made to be here. Also, can't go any further without saying something about Karen Hertzfeld on my team, and all of the work and all the nights and weekends that she has put into this as well to get us here. Where are you, Karen? There you go. Let me tell you this. Karen not only emails me late at night, and then she'll call me and say, I'm available for questions on the email I just sent you. I say, Karen, I'm asleep. Talk to you tomorrow. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Karen. Look, this was a full team effort. I would also like to give a special shout out and thank you to the assistance of the other commissioners who were instrumental in reaching a compromise on this order. Robert, Henry, Anne Marie in Commissioner Rosner's office, Kath and Stephen in Commissioner Chang's office, Regine and Neil in Commissioner Christie's office. We thank you all for the work that you put into this. As I said when we issued Order Number 1920 earlier this year, the fact remains that we will not be able to address all the challenges we face and continue to supply the reliable, abundant, and affordable power the American people depend on without taking a clear-eyed, long-term, forward-looking approach to transmission planning. That is why Order Number 1920 required and Order Number 1920A affirms that transmission planners must plan looking forward on a 20-year time horizon. Consider a broad set of reliability and economic benefits. Consider using money-saving, grid-enhancing technologies where it makes sense. Expand states' pivotal role throughout the process of planning, selecting, and deciding how to pay for transmission facilities. While affirming all those core components, this order fortifies an already strong final rule by further enhancing the ability of state regulators to provide their important perspectives. State involvement is critical to the success of this rule. That is why we included the unprecedented opportunity for a state engagement period on cost allocation. And we clarify today that if states need additional time to complete cost allocation discussions, the Commission will provide that flexibility. We also enhance the state's role further by allowing states to specifically request additional scenarios which may be most useful for their cost allocation purposes. In response to concerns that transmission providers may choose not to file state-agreed cost allocation methods, we clarify that the Commission may legally adopt any just and reasonable cost allocation method, not just the one that was put up on compliance, so long as it complies with Order Number 1920 and the cost causation principle. Finally, as I previously made clear, we clarify today that Order Number 1920 allows transmission providers to allocate the costs of different types of benefits, such as economic and reliability and public policy benefits, to those who receive each type of benefit. If you don't benefit, you don't pay. I'm very pleased with where we landed, and with that, I will turn to my colleagues. Commissioner Christie.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'm going to explain what I'm concurring to in a second, but let me just say for thank yous to all my colleagues. There's some good changes in here. I'll describe them in a minute. Some very good changes in here, and I want to thank my colleagues for working in good faith to agree on some of these changes. I also want to extend my thanks to my two staff persons, Regine and Neil, Regine Ballas and Neil Yalabandi. The chairman talked about getting emails on Saturday afternoon. They were often working on Saturday afternoon when I was watching football. And so I know they were because they were sending me emails, which I wasn't looking at until halftime. And so they worked extremely hard on it too. I also want to extend my thanks in particular to all the state organizations and states who filed petitions for rehearing, starting with NERC. NERC filed unanimous petition for rehearing adopted by their board. It was very effective. Other state organizations like OPSI, for rehearing, many individual states filed. And so did everybody miss all that? Okay. All right. Well, thanks to Commissioner Chang for telling me to turn the button on. All right. So this is a 206 proceeding. Let's go to law school for a second. This is a 206 proceeding. In a 206 proceeding, the complainant, which in this case is the commission, faces what's called a two-prong burden. The first prong of 206 is the complainant, again, here the commission, has the burden of proof to show that every transmission provider in America, RTO and non-RTO, is producing unjust, unreasonable, and or unduly discriminatory rates. Okay, that has to be shown in the first prong. If that is shown, the second prong is that the complainant, well, the commission here, has to come up with a replacement rate. There are numerous good changes to the replacement rate. I'm concurring to several specific changes to the replacement rate, particularly with regard to the state role. And when you get my written statement, I'll be very specific and you can see exactly what specific changes I'm concurring to. They're most all about the state role, not all, but most are about the state role. So let me talk about some of the most important and the reason I think they're really a good step forward in terms of the state role. And you know, I'm asked repeatedly, why are you constantly harping about the state role? And the reason is state regulators are the front line of defense for their consumers. That's where you're going to get the major defense of consumers state by state. You're going to get them from state regulators. And so I've been insistent that the state regulators have got to have the authority to protect their consumers from unfair or excessive transmission costs. And that's why I'm so insistent upon the state role. And I'm glad that we've really made some improvements here. Let me talk about a few of them. And again, I'll list them specifically in my written statement. Very big one. Unlike 1920, in 1920A, if the states in a multi-state region agree on a cost allocation formula, ex ante, unlike 1920, in 1920A, the transmission provider must file it. It cannot be ignored. And there's more. It sounds like late night TV. It comes to FERC. And it can come with the alternative from the transmission provider. FERC can choose the state agreement. There's no presumption that the transmission provider's alternative has to be chosen. It can be both the transmission providers and the state agreement, and FERC can choose the state agreement. Okay? That's big. Big change. Another big change, and this echoes one of the asks from NERC. It's not exactly, but it echoes it. Once the cost allocation formula is put in place, if the TP, the transmission provider, wants to change it in the future, such as through a 205 filing, the transmission providers must consult in advance with the states. before they develop that 205 if they're trying to change what the states agreed to and was adopted on compliance. That's a big, good, positive step forward. Here's another one, really big. States now will be able, when they're doing cost allocation, states will now, under 1920A, be able, in a multi-state region, let's just say PJM, for example, states will now be able to ask the transmission provider to run another scenario, in addition to the three, I think it's three that are mandated in 1920. They can ask, for example, that the transmission provider run a baseline scenario consisting of nothing but the optimal reliability and economic projects that would have been in their baseline scenario before. Like in PJM, it's called the RTEP. States can now request that the transmission provider run the baseline scenario so that states can see the difference in the cost between the baseline, for example, the RTEP and PJM. They can see the difference in cost between the baseline scenario and the multi-driver scenarios, which would include, of course, state policies. Furthermore, states can request and agree to allocate a cost allocation in PJM, for example, or it could be SPP, MISO, wherever. It could be CERTEP. States can agree to an ex-ante formula where the delta between the baseline scenario, and by the way, Virginia and North Carolina commissions asked specifically for that baseline. It's a good idea. I'm glad it's in there. States can now say, well, we want to allocate if the delta is from state policies, which it will be because it's going to be above the baseline RTEP. We want that allocated to the states whose policies are driving it. That's a big difference. Big ask from the states, and it's in there in 1920A. Another good provision. In PJM, for example, where we've had the state agreement approach for almost 12 years, the order clarifies, this was an OPSI ask, clarifies that the PJM state agreement approach that's been in effect for 12 years does not have to be reaffirmed. It is expressly approved to continue as a voluntary cost allocation for those projects like New Jersey's offshore wind that should not be regionally cost allocated. Order says, PJM state agreement approach we've known and loved for 12 years continues. Okay, it's great. A new transparency provision is in here. Transmission providers will now be required to designate and quantify benefits, including public policy benefits. So states in a multi-state region, again, PJM, SPP, MISO, can see how public policy benefits are being identified and how they're being quantified, so that, and this is by the way, this is by transmission pricing zone. So they'll get to see, the states will get to see what they're getting charged, what benefits they're getting charged for, and they'll get it right down to the zone. That's great. That's a big step forward. It was mentioned that factor number 7, which is that the transmission providers are supposed to use corporate purchasing power preferences in their planning, is out. Thank goodness for that. That's one of the most unconscionable things. That was saying that the corporate power preferences of huge multinational corporations, I won't name names, but you know who we're talking about, they had to be used to plan billions of dollars of lines, which was going to be cost allocated to consumers who are struggling to pay their monthly bills right now. That's gone. That's a great step. So there's some other stuff I listed in my statement. I think they really improve, I think, the workability, and certainly from the state standpoint. And when we look forward to, I got a feeling, nothing around here happens easily. So we're clearly going to hear feedback, pushback, and I look forward to hearing particularly from the states when they get to read the fine print and see what they think about it. And compliance is, the rubber hits the road in compliance, right? We'll have to see how that goes and have to see what kind of feedback we get. But I think these are really good steps for the states. I think they've been very responsive. Again, I thank my colleagues for agreeing to these good steps for the states. I look forward to hearing the states themselves reaction to them. But I think they're going to also be provisions that are going to protect consumers a lot more. And that's a really good thing. I would say to the states, Okay, this is giving you a much bigger toolbox with a much better set of tools, but you got to use them. You got to get those tools out. You got to use them. And I think it was mentioned also, there's a provision in here that at state request, they can extend the engagement period by 6 months, which will also obviously comparably continue the compliance. So to the states, all you got to do is ask. All you got to do is ask. You get 6 more months in the engagement period, which will really help to digest these changes. So those are the things I'm pleased we're adding. I think from a state standpoint, it's very, very responsive to the states. Again, I thank my colleagues for agreeing to this. And with that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Christie. Commissioner Rosner.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I am, excuse me, I'm very, very proud and so pleased to be here with my colleagues this morning to vote out Order Number 1920A, a bipartisan order that makes meaningful changes in response to the requests for rehearing and clarification the Commission received. But it does so in a way that delivers on the premise of Order 1920, which is to enable regions to identify needed transmission infrastructure that will make America more energy secure. If you walk away from this meeting with one message, it is this: we heard the states loud and clear, and we want to be responsive to them. We are making changes today to ensure that states have the information and flexibility to agree on cost allocation methods that work for the unique characteristics of their region, that they perceive are fair, that follow the laws Congress has entrusted this commission to execute, and that are consistent with judicial precedent. And when states do reach agreement, we want to make sure that the commission can act on those agreements. So I want to make 3 major points today, in addition to the comments offered by Chairman Phillips and Commissioner Christie. First, got to do the thank yous. Today's order is the product of extensive good faith compromise among all the commissioners at this table, and would not have been possible without the advisors sitting behind us and the Commission's hardworking professional staff. Thank you. I know, Chairman, you named some names. I got to do it again. I want to thank my advisors, Henry Engelstein, Anne Marie Hirschberger, and Robert Ferris, for their efforts, and the other Commissioners' advisors, Karen, Regine, Neil, Stephen, Kath. Thank you for working so productively with me and my team. And last but not least, once again, Commission staff, this has been a huge team effort, and I'm really proud of it. The second thing I want to emphasize is that the need for this rule is urgent and obvious. In conversations I have had around the country these last few months in my new role, I've come to see that there is broad agreement that we have a pressing need for more infrastructure. And there are several reasons for this. You've heard these. Electricity demand. It's projected to grow at levels not seen for a generation, with new large industrial customers looking for power anywhere they can get it, new end uses of electricity, but we just don't have the grid capacity needed to unlock the economic growth and jobs that these opportunities promise. Interconnection queues around the country are overflowing with new resources of all fuel types, waiting years to connect to the grid. And even with the looming reliability, resource adequacy, and affordability challenges that are on the horizon, we simply don't have the infrastructure needed to get these resources on the system. So to me, the solution is obvious, but hard. We need to find ways to connect generation to demand, and to accomplish this, we need a transmission grid that is up to the task. This forward-looking holistic transmission planning reforms in this order will give transmission providers the foresight needed to get ahead of these challenges, ensuring that consumers have the reliable and affordable energy that they deserve. And third, last, I want to reiterate my sincere belief that Order 1920 will work because it enables the Commission to embrace states and the consumers they represent as full partners in developing and executing the planning and cost allocation mechanisms that work for them. To that end, today's order ensures that states have a significant and continuing role in transmission cost allocation. It ensures that states have the information they need to agree on how to allocate the costs, including informational planning scenarios to reveal how different factors influence transmission costs, and the mandatory disclosure of the benefits and costs that flow to transmission customers. It also clarifies and expands upon the broad flexibility allowed under Order 1920 for transmission cost allocation. Specifically, we're clarifying that nothing in Order 1920 precludes states from agreeing to costs in proportion to the benefits that they define themselves, including the benefit of achieving a state's public policies. This is important because it allows states, which have different goals and different priorities, to plan together, but also to agree on ways to pay for projects in ways that all states think are fair. And finally, I want to point you to the appendix of Commissioner Christie's statement, which I think provides an excellent, plain English summary of 11 of the key reforms adopted in this order. So the bottom line for me is this: we will only be able to build the transmission that we need by empowering states to agree on cost allocation mechanisms that work for them. And I believe that Order 1920A enables this, and that's why I'm honored to support it today. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Chang.
Thank you. First, thank you for the folks here sitting in front of us and presenting. And I know all of the people behind you and working with you as a team have worked tirelessly, as the chairman said, for months and years maybe on this very important topic. Transmission rightfully has been at the forefront of this commission's agenda for the past few years. I came to this commission after Order 1920 was issued, and as you heard, rehearing requests were filed about 4 months ago, and since then staff has really comprehensively analyzed all the requests and drafted a comprehensive order to address them. I also know teams have worked long hours, weekends, as we said, even after the new commissioners here stole some of the staff that had been working on this, and you kept going and you kept working hard, and we couldn't get here without you, so thank you very much. But today's order also highlights why this agency needs dedicated professionals and knowledgeable staff to help us today and going forward, and we really couldn't do this without you, and the industry would suffer without you. I would like to thank my colleagues and advisors, just like others have. Today is a product of months of collaboration and end up in a really good place, and I'm very proud for the work and the results. First, I also want to thank my staff, Kath Radcliffe and Stephen Wellner. They've definitely spent a lot of hours working through the details and analyzing things with me in all odds, in all different hours of the day and the weekends. But I also want to emphasize a few things. Commissioner Christie, Neil, and Regine, you know, you really engaged with me on this Order 1920 right from the start, probably the first day that I'm on this commission. And it was clear that you spent a lot of time thinking about this, and you thought a lot about what this order should do, should not do, how to do it, and it was very clear. But you do it also because you want to address the transmission needs of this country, and you recognize that. You had an eye toward identifying the important aspects of this rule that will help the country move forward in developing the needed transmission. Always available to discuss with me when we need to connect, we need to reconnect, we need to rediscuss the things that we discussed. Really not as a compromise. I think you heard that today. Really to just understand where we come from, because we bring to this job many different experiences and perspectives and the voices that you have heard from other interveners and market participants, and I have. So I really thank you for that effort that you put in, and it's just a fantastic way to work together. Commissioner Rosner, Robert, Henry, Anne Marie, thank you for the nights and days that you worked on this. Commissioner Rosner, you are a hardworking partner throughout this effort, and your positivity really rubs off. Your optimism really rubs off, and when we are tired, you bring us back up. And you've always been available and eager to engage and facilitate many discussions and willing to drill down into the details and find common grounds and come up with different scenarios to think about and how to really make sure we move forward. And Chairman Phillips and Karen, thank you very much for giving us the space to work this out and keep the team's work moving forward and help us getting to today. Thank you very much. So turning to the merits, bear with me. Having worked in transmission planning for a long time and have helped utilities, RTOs, ISOs think through what's necessary and craft scenarios to reflect the future uncertainties and also depicting the drivers of transmission needs of this country, I can appreciate all the hard work that people have put in and really thought in detail how this should work, and we put our best foot forward. Based on that experience, I think Order 1920 and now Order 1920A is a very strong order and substantially improves transmission planning and help to solve the cost allocation problem that we've been talking about for the last 20 years. The logjam, when we cannot agree, therefore the transmission projects never move forward. I think this order moves us greatly forward and making, hopefully breaking the logjam and really bring some great benefits to this country in building the infrastructure that we need. While it took us and the industry a long time to get here, and it was, I would say, long overdue, it's a necessary step for the Commission to create the rules of the road and the guidance for transmission development for this country, and I'm very glad to be part of this effort. Today's order builds on the foundation laid in Order 1920 and improves the rule. You've already heard how it improves it, but I just want to summarize in my own words. First and foremost, it's absolutely critical that we plan for the future in the most comprehensive way possible, and 1920 does that. Our grid is a meshed network. Comprehensive planning means that we need to account for various drivers of transmission needs simultaneously. It's hard work for all the engineers and all those policy people and all the lawyers. It's hard work, but we need to do this in a sort of long-term approach and in a comprehensive manner, and break down the silos that we have created over the last few years. Second, because I've had the opportunity to experience firsthand how states think about transmission, recognize the importance of transmission, but also worry about the increasing cost of transmission with that build out. States' meaningful involvement, not just any involvement, but really meaningful involvement, is extremely critical to ensuring that their needs are properly incorporated in the planning process. And this Order 1928 does that. So we have a revised order to ensure states' views on their laws and policies and regulations are accounted for upfront in the scenario planning process, in the scenario development process. Then states must have a meaningful voice in how costs are allocated. We all know, if we've worked in this industry long enough, when people don't want to pay for the cost, the projects do not move forward. So states have a very critical role in ensuring that the projects move forward. So already summarized by others, this order empowers states to voice their preferences in how costs should be allocated for their respective regions. That will help, and then it will in turn help the Commission to establish just and reasonable rates and cost allocation methods, both during the compliance timeframe for 1920 and in the future when projects are selected. So if there are tranches of projects, that the states believe a different type of cost allocation needs to happen for that particular tranche of project, there's a sincere and real place for the states to voice their preferences. So the order also clarifies that the regions and states can develop additional scenarios, as you heard earlier, to inform that cost allocation approach. Okay, so there's still very significant compliance process in front of us and going forward. So there's still a lot more work, but I think I'm very happy with where the rule landed today. And I, again, very, very appreciative of my colleagues, their advisors, the staff. We all worked really well together. Again, I continue to work with all of you and all of the people in the industry to implement the rule going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Madam Secretary, I'll call for a vote.
As noted, Commissioner C is not participating in E1. We will now take a vote on this item, beginning with Commissioner Chang.
I vote yes.
Commissioner Rosner.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Christie.
I concur in part.
And Chairman Phillips.
I vote aye.
Thank you.
With that, thank you, everyone. Thank you again for the presentation. Before we close out, I'd like to give my colleagues an opportunity for any closing comments. Commissioner Christie? None?
Enjoy Thanksgiving next week.
Happy Thanksgiving. I think we've said it all.
Yes, happy Thanksgiving. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. This meeting is adjourned.